Hi everyone, I'm the Plant Propagator and welcome to my channel. Today it's just such a beautiful day here in Southwest Florida. It is late February, temperature is 72 degrees Fahrenheit, which is I think 23 degrees Celsius, I think. Anyway, it's just a beautiful day. Not a cloud in the sky, low humidity, orchids are doing good. I'm actually doing good. This is a nice day. What I wanted to do, I got a lot of my orchids are flowering, but I've shared a lot of those with you already. I've got some new blooms on some of my plants that I wanted to share with you, and I've got, those are these three plants right here, and then I've got two more plants that I can't move. One is mounted to a tree, and I want to show you some interesting things because this plant is just flowering so much I can't believe it. It might flower itself to death, and then I want to show you another plant that has gotten so big that it has, and I got it on the fence behind me, but it's in a pot hanging, but the plant is growing so aggressively it's attached itself to the vinyl fence. So I'm not moving that one until I have to. And so I want to share those with you as well. But I want to start with these right here. The first one that I want to share with you is I think it's a CTT, which is I think a Cattleya candy corn, and the cultivar is Star of Siam. This is a really nice small plant. I picked this up, I think, in an auction, a silent auction at my home society a couple of years ago. It hasn't done really well, but it survived and it's doing okay. The nice thing I like about this is that there is, I always like flared Cattleyas, and that's what this is, small flower. But it has yellow flaring on a very light colored small flower. It's got a couple of bloom, even though there's not much on this plant that's growing, it's got a couple of bloom spikes that are coming out. The first bloom spike has 3 flowers that are open. The second one looks like a single flower, and that still is not open yet. I wanted to use this in my breeding because I like flared Cattleyas, but I just haven't gotten around to it. The flower is kind of small for me. There's no fragrance. I like it. I'm not sure that I love it, but it's a nice little plant. I do have to wait for it to fill in a little bit. The other thing is, since it was a plant that I got from somebody else at a silent auction through my home society, I haven't virus tested this plant, and I probably should do that because it's not growing as quickly as it should. I'm not really too concerned about it transferring from one plant to another if it is. There's no symptoms on the plant. It doesn't look like there's an issue, but it's just not growing really quickly. It is an old, it's an old hybrid, so maybe that's it. It hasn't been, selected for vigor recently. But just out of safety, I should test it. The second one, I want to move from this one right here to this one right here, and this is a very common and popular Cattleya. So this is Hawaiian Prominence America, and this is a very intense dark red Cattleya with a very striking yellow throat. This is a really nice plant, incredibly vigorous. I have used this in my crosses. This is a purchase that I made a few years ago from Carmela, and I was disappointed when I got this, still am, that I bought a plant that was supposed to be a few years old, and when I repotted the plant, clearly there were 3 small plants that were shoved into one pot to make it look bigger. But one of the plants didn't make it. 2 of them have. The other one is in spike, but the flower, it hasn't opened yet. And this is the largest one of the 3 that were there. Right now this plant is growing, it's growing kind of, it's meandering a little bit, it's growing sideways. I need to get this a little bit under a little bit better control. but it's okay. And the nice thing about it is that it has been blooming for a few years. This time of the year, every year, it's about the same time as the orchid shows that I participate in. And this actually has 2 flowers that are open on this spike. There are 2 flowers that are closed on another spike, and then there is a 3rd spike where the flowers are pretty deeply embedded in the sheath, and that's probably, so this is probably going to be blooming for a couple of months. You know, what you want ideally this time of the year is just to show. You want all the flowers to open at the same time, and this is spread out a little bit. The plant is growing to the edge of the pot, and it's in a fairly small pot. So what I probably am going to do with this plant is wait till it finishes blooming, and then what happens is it puts out usually new growth after that, and I was going to repot it, put it in a bigger pot, and move the new growth to the center of a little bit of a larger pot. It's doing okay. It's got, I mean, the blooms are just gorgeous on this plant. It's very, again, the dark red, the color is so rich. It tends to be, or it has tended to be, an award winner. The last show that I went to, I didn't see any of these that were blooming at the show, and I don't know why. Sometimes, you know, other people have plants that are a little earlier, but maybe the next show that to, and I think it's about 2.5 to 3 weeks, I would guess that there's going to be a lot more of Hawaiian Prominence America that are going to be entered into that show. Much bigger plants than mine, because mine are relatively new acquisitions. Okay, the 3rd plant that I want to share with you is a plant that is Oncidium. I think it's a Brassidium. It says Oncidium on the tag, but I think it's a Brassidium Kenneth Bivins. The tag says Bivins. I'll have to get the name. I don't know whether it's Bivins or Bivin. But this is a Brassidium. This is a really large, Oncidium. The flowers are just huge on these things. I would imagine the span is like 8 inches on these flowers. There's about 1/3 of the blooms have opened on the spike. It may last to the next show. We'll have to see. The flowers on this plant are very long-lived. I've had this for a few years. This plant actually was purchased by my daughter, by the plant propagator Junior. She loved this plant. I was like, okay, fine, buy it, bring it home. But this is her plant that I'm just watching for her. The thing that I really like about this is this has bloomed every few months since I bought it. It's very vigorous. It puts out you know, new growth and new bloom spikes, and the plant just does really well in the conditions that I'm growing. You can tell it's in a big pot, and right, well, maybe you can't, maybe it's off, but it's in a relatively large pot here, and it just does well. It still has a lot of room to go to fill up this pot. I was surprised a few months ago to see this bloom spike coming out of it, because I wasn't expecting this. My Oncidiums don't, I'm usually not that good at growing Oncidiums, but this one tends to do well. It is next to my pergola, so it gets good shade. It's a big pot, so it's actually on a paver that's on the ground next to my pergola. The root system on this is very, you know, it's very vigorous. It is in mostly bark. So the Oncidiums have a little bit more of a fibrous root system compared to the Cattleyas that I have, and so it tends to, I put it in a little bit more of a fine mix, so it's in a bark mix, and I put everything in Orchiata because it lasts a lot longer. So this plant is doing very well. I just looked at it earlier today to see if I had any new growth. There are no new flower spikes coming out of it, but there's a new, you know, there's a new growth, a new, I guess it's a pseudobulb that's growing out of it. The pseudobulbs on this are pretty thick, and there's a new one coming out of it. So it doesn't grow that quickly. It doesn't grow that much, but it just puts out flowers from these pseudobulbs pretty frequently. I bought this thing from Sundance Orchid in Bromeliads in Fort Myers, and when I was up there a couple of weeks ago looking at their orchids, they still had plenty of these in stock. One of them were flowering, and it was nice to see that my plant is, because I got it a while ago, my plant's bigger than the plants that are there, but still they're nice sized plants for a very good price. And it's something that just so you know, it's something that I didn't think I would like as a flower and to grow. But I'm really enjoying this plant just because it is so prolific in it, and the blooms are so nice and big, and they're striking too. Again, the size of these blooms are just huge. So, and I think they may be a little bit bigger, you know, now on this plant than when I first got it, because I think this plant is now established and settled into its pot and its location. All right, so these are the three that I wanted to show you from here. What I need to do now is get behind the camera, and I'm going to show you a Vanda Selena that I've showed you pretty recently. But the reason I want to show it to you is because there's 3 spikes on it with flowers that are open. There's 2 additional spikes that are growing out of this plant. So I don't know if it's going to bloom itself to death. Well, we'll take a look at that. And then I've got a Dulatiaca Lava Flow that is really big and nice. There was one of those that was presented at one of these meetings that shows that I was at. Their plants were impressive. Mine isn't quite as impressive as that, but it's starting to open, and I may give you a second viewing of that Dulatiaca, because it's about maybe a third, only about a third of the flowers are open. Okay, so let me get behind the camera and show you 2 more orchids that I'm not moving, where I have to bring the camera to the orchids rather than the orchids to the camera. All right, so give me a second, I'll get behind the camera. Okay, and we are back. So this is Vanda Selena, and it's on a pretty nice sized plant that's growing on the side of my palm tree, and this is a Christmas palm tree. But the roots, as you can see, I hope, are growing up pretty high, and then if we follow them back down, it's got a a nice root system that is hanging off the side, where coming out of the plant itself and actually down to the soil. But then in addition to that, it's it's growing down this tree right here, and anyway, a pretty extensive root system. But the main thing that I wanted to show you on this is the spikes. So there are 3 flower spikes on this plant. It's a good windy day, so they're moving around a little bit. The flowers themselves they're pretty nice, and this plant it's got right now 1, 2 over here, and then the 3rd flower spike right here. But I came out here the other day, and what I found was additional flower spike there, and another one, I think you can see it right there in the middle. So these 2 additional flower spikes right here are coming out of this plant. Now when you look at the plant here, you don't see any new leaves, but if you look down in there really close, you can see, I think it's still okay. I talk with people about what happens with some of their orchids, and sometimes these plants bloom like crazy before they just kind of peter out. It's the last showing before they're done. But I think I'm going to get new growth. This one at least has like a ton of keikis on it, but it's going to take a while for any of these keikis, I think, to get nice blooms on them. But what I'm thinking is going to happen with this is that I will see some new growth come out of the tip of that, even though it just doesn't look great. But again, I got close in there, can't see it from here, but I got close in there, and I think I see some new growth coming out of the top of this thing. But just a nice plant, really loaded. It's kind of coming to its own here, and again, I'm not really good at growing Vandas, but this one seems to have, I seem to have found the right spot for it. You know, nothing I did. I just put it on the tree right here and it just adjusted and did well. All right, let's move on to the next plant. I do want to show you, well, this is where I was sitting right here. So that's, yeah, right there. And then I have, just so you can see it, there's my Momolani Rainbow. Made some crosses onto this plant today. So this plant is now back home. That's where it lives. And then this is a Mahina Yahiro right here. And again, you can see the tag hanging off the bottom of one of those. I made a few crosses onto that today. These are both really good parents. As we move on to where the last plant I want to show you, this is Wu Lang, Dendrobium Wu Lang. Again, is just strapped on the side of this tree that's got a few bloom spikes coming out of it. But let's move on to the last plant that I want to show you that's over here. And this is a Dulatiaca right here. So you can see, let me back away, you can see from this plant that there is one, two, three. This one isn't even open yet, not even close to open. 4, 5, 6 bloom spikes, and of these only, it looks like 3 of them have open flowers on it. The flowers, this was a gift from a colleague, and she gave me a little piece of this, and I just kind of put it in a pot here on the fence. The pot's way too small for the plant, and just ignored it. And it's done really well. Again, it found its place and where it wants to live. So it's doing really well. And it was funny because this year she asked me for a piece of it back, which I gave to her. I think she might have lost the plant, but I gave her, so I actually cut a pretty nice size of this plant off and returned it to her. And she says it's doing okay, but no blooms on her plant this year. But what happened in the meantime is this thing has done really well, and it's got a lot of flowers on it. The flowers, I'm not, you know, they're okay. I'm not a lover of small flowers. There's no fragrance associated with this. I did, because it is a because the color is really dark red. I tried crossing this onto I tried crossing a lot of different orchids onto this, and I got a lot of seed capsules to form very low viable seed numbers. So most of the capsules, I got maybe a handful of seeds, and those are growing in the laboratory, and I can't wait to see what I get out of them. But you never know. When you have such low numbers of seeds, you never know what you're going to get. But I am hopeful. This plant is, again, doing really well. I do like the color. You know, the flowers are pretty nice, but they're a little small and no fragrance, so not real high on my list. But this is, and what I'm probably going to have to do is share this with you yet again when more of these flowers are open, because right now it's, I thought it was a third. Yeah, it might be a third of the way open, but there's still a long way to go on this. All right, that's all I have for you today. I just wanted to share those plants with you. Again, lots more coming. I want to show you. See, we sneak a peek over here. I don't know if you can see back there, but I got a lot of phals that are flowering. I might have to have like a Phalaenopsis specific video coming up soon. That's all I have for you today. I wanted to share these with you. I hope you like my video. If you did and you want to keep on seeing them, it would help me out if you can click on like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber. All right, once again, I hope you enjoyed my videos today, and happy propagating.